Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Rivera, and I'm going to be talking to you today about grief, experiencing it and overcoming it. Everyone experiences some form of grief at some time. Recently, I would say that my life has been a bit overwhelming and filled with grief. What is grief, though? How do we explain it? According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, grief is the keen mental suffering or distress over affliction or loss. Not everyone will experience grief in the same way that everyone else will. The losses and afflictions that cause grief are different, but everyone grieving will go through 5 stages and must learn to cope effectively with their grief in order to continue living a productive life. There are many things that cause grief. They aren't always all the same for all people. While the most common cause and recognized form of grief is the death of a loved one, there's a multitude of other causes. An article in psychguides.com stated, "The loss of anything important to you can cause feelings of grief. This means that relationship changes, such as divorce or a child leaving home, and life changes, like the loss of a pet or loss of a pregnancy, can also cause grief. Health changes, such as illnesses and personal injuries, very often cause grief as well. Some other causes could be a loss of an income, loss of a job, or having to move. Everyone is different, and every situation is different. Hence, their grief experience is different. Just as there are many ways grief hits, there are also many stages of grief. Though these stages are standard, they will not always occur in the same order. Grief.com labels these stages as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The stage many will go through first is denial. Denial that anything is happening, denial that it ever is even possible, or denial that the news being delivered to them is being delivered even to the right person. I know that when I received news of our sweet Danny's passing, I just kept repeating no. They were wrong. There was no way it was her. Then started to believe that this was all a dream. We would wake up soon and laugh together about how silly of a thought it even was. Shortly after denial, many will start to feel anger. Anger towards God, anger towards the person telling you, anger towards the person or persons responsible, or even just angry at life itself all around. Many times the anger will begin to consume, and one will start bargaining for a different outcome or situation. One may try bargaining with doctors, other family members, and most often God or other religious figures. When one realizes these bargaining tactics are all unanswered, and this is usually when depression takes hold. Depression can oftentimes feel like it will never pass, and oftentimes this is the stage that people will stay in the longest. A person suffering from depression caused of grief may not even feel like facing the day, unable to get out of bed, unable to live life, knowing things in the world around them will remind them of the grief they are trying to get past. Depression can also be in the form of a solemn, quiet presence, not engaging in conversation, crying at random intervals throughout the day or night. There's no set way someone suffers from depression. The last stage that occurs when going through grief is the stage of acceptance. Acceptance allows a person to start living life somewhat as they did before the grief struck. They can accept what has happened or is happening and start learning to cope with it. These stages may not occur in this order, and sometimes some stages may not occur at all, but these are all possible things you can go through if you're overwhelmed with grief. Some people may go back and forth through stages multiple times, and even after they've already accepted the situation. Coping with grief can be a full-time job in itself. There are many ways to cope with grief. Everyone will learn to cope differently. The most important part of coping is finding support. This support can be friends, family, your faith, or a support group. Effective coping requires you to take care of yourself. This means facing things that you're feeling, expressing those feelings, taking care of your health needs, and knowing your triggers for your grief, and trying to overcome it. In an article on WebMD.com reviewed by Dr. Joseph Goldberg, many will do things that will negatively affect their coping and healing process, such as overloading themselves at work, abusing drugs or alcohol, compulsive behaviors such as gambling, minimizing their feelings, and or just avoiding their emotions altogether. If you notice any of these behaviors after a long period of time, or after a long period of time nothing has changed and you're still feeling an overwhelming amount of grief, it's best to seek professional help. Talk to someone that is trained to help you overcome the emotion of grief. Grief is something that all people feel and experience at some point in their lives. Some people may experience it more than others. Accepting what has happened does not mean forgetting. Acceptance means creating new memories and learning to live without the ones or the things we have lost. The most important thing to know is what can cause grief, the stages of grief, and how to overcome it when it happens to you. This speech is dedicated to the precious memory of our sweet Danny Nicole. May she rest in peace and live in our hearts forever. We miss you every day.